Khalil was saying, it's a home game for him since he's fighting at home in Vegas, and that might be a little bit harder for him to get amped up. I am always curious for you guys, like the comfort of sleeping at home and being chill and relaxed before bed versus the uncomfortability that sometimes helps you click over into fight mode instead, right?
Yeah, I'll be honest. My best performances have been when I've put myself in that uncomfortable situation
Hmm.
because it wakes your mindset up to realize that this is fight week. I can't be comfortable. And that's one of the things that goes wrong a lot of times when it comes to mentally preparing yourself for the moment when you walk out to the cage is you try to feel normal because you feel so weird getting ready, like when the fight leads up, and you want to feel normal at all costs. But the truth of the matter is you have to reset your understanding of normal. You have to recalibrate it, and the new normal is that anxiety, is that anxious feeling that you're feeling leading up to the fight. And the more you avoid that, the more it's going to hit you on fight night, and it may take you out of your game.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel, we hear that a lot. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And it's
Yeah.
like this kind of meme thing, but you do have to do that though. Like you do.
Absolutely, it's mandatory because if, like, you're in a fight and it's a very unpredictable situation. I don't care how you train, no matter how comfortable you are in there. It's a fight, and there's a lot of different variables that can happen, and it's an uncomfortable situation to psychologically think about all the things that can go wrong. So the best thing you can do is just dive into the aspect of, you know what, this is going to be uncomfortable, but I got to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable because that's when I'm going to be able to take the most chances. And it's the one who takes the most chances and who's willing to go that extra mile is the one most of the time to get their hand raised.
So with that in mind, then, Yiri was saying that he didn't think that Khalil has faced the same level of competition. Obviously Yiri is the former champ, and so by definition, yes, he probably has. He's climbed a little bit higher than Khalil has so far, but that's not like people need to remember. Khalil was Anderson Silva's roommate, like training partner, all this
Yeah.
stuff for a very long time. And he used to put in. I've seen it. I've got old footage of him down at Black House with Lyoto and stuff like this. And like Khalil can hang, so don't let anybody think that this guy is doesn't have that historic sort of training and stuff that he hasn't faced tough people, but. Yuri does have a point that Khalil hasn't faced the same kind of guys that he has, and with Yuri's unorthodox style, like how difficult do you think this matchup is?
I think sometimes having have faced the toughest competition can work against you because you've established some kind of trauma in there. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Okay.
can't you can you know honestly see the fact that the fights that Yuri has had with Pereira has
Mhm.
kind of mentally scarred him in a bit. He's not the same. He doesn't have that same belief in invincibility that he once had. And who's to know, like, having his last loss against Pereira may have been his moment to recalibrate his mindset and kind of reestablish mentally.
But basically, the overall, I'm just curious, like your take on the actual matchup between Khalil and Yidi. Yidi, a former champ, saying he has way more difficult
Yeah.
competition, strength of schedule. But
Okay.
we know that Khalil is has recalibrated over the last few years and really
Yeah.
leveled up, and comes from a great history at Black House.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like I was saying, with Yuri, he's gonna have to mentally just come in here just a different person from, when you have a belief in yourself and you haven't had the trauma in the cage of getting beaten and beaten on when you feel your very best. It takes a while to build that belief back up in yourself. Now you have Khalil on the other hand, who's been waiting in the wings, so to speak, kind of playing the role of training partner and really perfecting his craft, understanding what is the best fighting style that's going to suit him. And I feel like now he's stepping into that more. The fight that he lost against Pereira, he was doing his thing before that fight. And even though he did end up getting finished in that fight, it gave him a good marker to kind of set his hat on to say, you know what, I can. be as good, and I am as good as I believe. I just came up short because maybe I didn't do this enough, or maybe I didn't do that enough, and only he knows those answers. But he was left with more of a positive resolve and more of a belief in himself than I think Jiri was in his last fight. So I go into this fight. I say all that to say I go into this fight believing that Khalil has the psychological advantage coming into this, having not had the trauma that that Yuri had in the cage.
Yeah, that makes a great point. And to be honest, look at Khalil's last win was against a former champ in Jamal
Yep.
Hill. You know what I mean, over there in Baku. So, he's coming in with a lot of momentum, and like we said, like he switched some things like in a few years ago or whatever, and like just some stuff shifted in his brain, and you could see it, and he became like even more like he's gone through a lot of metamorphoses in his life
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
But I don't know that people should count Khalil out. He can be extremely violent.
He
uh
can be, and he's very systematic about his approach. He
yeah.
doesn't get pulled into the wildness of a fight, and that was one of the things that gave him the advantage over Jamal, is because
Mhm.
Jamal is very dynamic in the fact that he can seize those moments where the fight gets into a fight where it's not all about the technique, where you just kind of
Mhm.
throwing, right? He seizes those opportunities because he has that power that just comes out of nowhere. That's the equalizer to all, right? And he'll knock you out if you get sloppy. But Khalil did a really good job of just staying really systematic and broke down Jamal
Mhm.
from the legs and stayed consistent up until he can start really opening up more with the striking. Now, I say that because Yuri, his biggest strength is to pull you into the mess. Like, Yuri is
Mhm.
amazing with pulling you into that wildness of a fight because he has that unorthodox style. But I
Mhm.
don't think that Khalil is going to get pulled into that wildness because it looks like he's mastered his style enough to understand
Mhm.
how to stay calm when the fight gets a little wild and gets a little crazy.